Blizzard is absolutely defined by the passion of Blizzard employees.
I think Blizzard is a very special place. We have the resources of a very large public company, and we're able to maintain kind of a level of focus and commitment that is really only typical from smaller companies.
This is an environment where creative people can really thrive.
There's always something new for us to work on every single day.
We have this wonderful community within our company.
Just a bunch of geeks.
All the employees here have great opportunities for growth.
It's our responsibility to help our employees constantly evolve and change and make the best games.
When making a game, we work with offices in Europe, we work with offices in Asia.
We are a whole ecosystem of different departments. We have designers, sure, but we also have producers, we have artists, we have quality assurance.
As an employee of Blizzard, I feel like I have a lot of ownership over the work I do. I'm entrusted with the power to be able to make it as awesome as I possibly can.
There's sort of this magic that exists in Blizzard Pride and us being together as a group and making things that we don't feel like we can make anywhere else in the world.
We are looking for the people that's constantly kind of trying to up the ante a little bit and go, you know what, this is great, but I want to make it even better.
Hello. Welcome to Inside Blizzard. We are so happy to have you with us today. I am Alice White. I head up Global Talent Acquisition at Blizzard, which means I'm the lucky person that gets to work on all of our hiring. So I couldn't be more thrilled to be here. This is actually my third BlizzCon. It's my second time on stage at BlizzCon. And I have to say, this is the most enchanted feeling stage I've ever seen. So I think this is now my new favorite stage. So I have my colleague Janine with me, who's going to introduce herself.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Happy BlizzCon. My name is Janine Tedford, and I head up the University Relations team here at Blizzard Entertainment. Basically, what my team does is we recruit and hire interns, as we like to affectionately call them, Blizzterns, here in North America, and college grads looking to get their foot in the door in the gaming industry. This is my 6th BlizzCon. Cannot believe it. So excited to be here for 7 years. Super excited about the Diablo announcement. So excited. And I could not be more excited to be here with you, Alice, our awesome panelists to the left, and you guys in the audience in the amazing world of Darkmoon Faire. So let's just kick it off and get ready for introductions.
And one other thing we forgot to say is hello to everybody on the virtual ticket, too. Hello. We always, we know you're out there, so thanks for joining us as well.
Awesome. So if you want to start with your name, title, team you work on, a little bit about what you do, and then to add a little color, shake things up a little bit, tell us about your favorite place on campus, headquartered in Irvine, which is only about 20 minutes away from the Anaheim Convention Center. So Zook, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm Alex Zook. I'm a data scientist, so I work in the Global Insights department. So Global Insights is our department where we sort of pull together all the data and information from the games and then work with all the different teams to provide that to them. I'm a data scientist, which means that we work a lot more with building models of these things and turning them into live products or services or personalization in those games. I also wear a second hat as sort of the discipline lead of the data scientist, so I'm helping sort of grow and foster this new area within Blizzard. So in terms of favorite places on campus, I'd have to say my favorite place is the Blizzard's outdoor gym. So Blizzard has this outdoor gym they just constructed about a year or so ago, and you basically just go out there. It's a bunch of weights and some basic equipment, and that's about it. It's really no frills. But I found that it really encapsulates Blizzard's culture as a whole and just what it's like to live and work at Blizzard. So there's a number of different fitness classes that are offered there. And when you go there and you work with people, it's very sort of like low, no ego kind of thing. You just go there, do your thing, and you meet like the whole people all across the whole company, where often it's like, oh, wow, it was cool to hang out with you. And then later I show up to a meeting, and I'm like, oh, that's who you are. I should have known that ahead of time. But it's, you know, this really great place. Obviously, we're down in Irvine, so you get all the perks of living in SoCal. So, you know, the worst days of the year, you know, that day it rains on us, maybe the second day it rains on us, and then the, you know, really frigid morning, you know, winter weather that we have to go out and bear of, you know, like 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But, you know, really, it's a great set of programs. They do all these different things, so everybody gets to kind of embrace their own sort of fitness geek. So for me, I really like the boot camp program, which is sort of a strength training program, but they do all sorts of different programs. So whether that's super CrossFit, or recently they've started sort of a mountain fitness program, it's just a great way to go, meet a bunch of people, and hang out and really sort of embrace those things. So for me, that's probably the favorite place.
Awesome.
My name's Karina Kingdom. I'm the lead character animator for a video game called Heroes of the Storm. And so I have a team of about 4 animators, and so what we do is we help bring the characters to life. And for my favorite place on campus, that would have to be Blizzard Academy. So for anyone that doesn't know, Blizzard Academy is an entire building dedicated to just giving classes and helping every employee learn and grow. We get to do classes during work hours. We get paid to do it, and the classes are amazing. It's everything from improv, stand-up comedy, time management. I've learned to puppeteer from Jim Henson's Studio Puppeteers. I've learned stop-motion animation from Leica. I've done sculpting. I've done oil painting. It is my favorite place to go to. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Ashok Viswanathan, and I'm the director of the corporate applications team at Blizzard. The team consists of very talented and passionate software engineers, designers, and program managers. We support a wide array of custom and third-party internal applications for Blizzard globally. As far as the favorite location goes, there's so many. I'd have to pick the Ops Center. It's a global network operations center called the GNOC. So if you're ever at campus, you should check it out. I think of them more like the finger on the pulse of our games post-launch. So they make sure that everything's up and running from the IT perspective, and players can experience a labor of love. And beyond that, they have this badass video wall, right, with all the graphs and charts. It's amazing, especially when we launch a game or an expansion. You can see on the world map all these dots light up as players log in. It's very exciting. Other than that, I would also say the basketball court. However, I haven't been there in quite a while. I'm woefully out of shape. So it's maybe time to visit that again.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nikki Crenshaw. I'm a user experience researcher. I'm a user experience researcher with the BattleNet and Games User Research teams. User experience is about understanding you, our players, understanding how you use our games, how you use our systems, and trying to make that better for you. So if you've ever had a really smooth experience, thanks to my team. I think my favorite place on Blizzard campus is our library. So we have a decked out library that kind of looks sort of tavern-y. We have a really awesome librarian who's great. And the library is just a really great place because there's awesome resources for like coding or game design or research methods. But there's also like tabletop gaming manuals and like games that I used to play on my Windows 95 machine and stuff that I can rent out for my Switch. And it's just like a really awesome environment. Also, if you follow the Life at Blizzard channels, Tux, our library cat, hangs out there sometimes. Yeah. And he's great to visit as well. So.
Great. Hi, Blizzcon. How's it going? I'm Jacob Rep. I'm a software engineer at Blizzard. I'm currently working on a new project and also leading a team of other engineers. I hope that we can give you guys a little bit of an insight into what it's like to work here, and hopefully there's some aspiring software engineers out there who are, yes. Oh, more? Yeah, we need more engineers. You know, so we're also hiring, so, you know, if you guys are interested, you know, you should come and talk to us. I've also had the privilege of working on numerous titles over my almost 9 years at Blizzard, so StarCraft 2 recently, Heroes of the Storm, and Overwatch. And it's just a huge privilege to be able to be a software developer at Blizzard and to work with so many amazing people. I think my favorite place at Blizzard, I actually have to cheat a little bit because my favorite place is right behind the campus. We have this trail that runs along a river. It's not really a river because it's usually dry unless it rains, and then it actually is a very scary river that can kill people. But we have this path that runs along there that's just beautiful, and you can see wildlife, and I actually live along the path so I can walk to and from work. I like to go back there on walks with people from my team. We talk about problems, technical and otherwise, and sometimes I even just go back there. If I'm stuck on a problem, I like to just go walk and think about it. And oftentimes I'll be looking at a duck and the answer comes in my head or something. I don't know. So it's a really great place to be. It's very inspiring, and yeah.
Hi, I'm Amrita. I'm sorry I'm running a couple minutes late. I was on another panel just before this, so there's nothing like running all the way across the convention center to get here to get your heart pumping.
You learned a new term for that, coming in hot.
I'm coming in hot, so I'm sorry for that, but I'm excited to be here with you. I'm Blizzard's Chief Financial Officer, so I run finance. Thank you. Finance! Yes! I run finance, accounting, all that fun stuff, facilities and purchasing, along with Global Insights, which you heard from Zook is our analytics organization. I've been with Blizzard for about 6 months, but I've been with Activision Blizzard for 8 years, and I really wanted to be at Blizzard, so I'm excited I finally made it in, and it's a pretty awesome spot to be. Thank you. So I'm also going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to give you 2 answers to my favorite spot. One of them's not even on campus. It's literally right here. I've been to 5 or 6 BlizzCons over the years, and every single time it feels like the first time. I get goosebumps. It's such an amazing spot to be, and I'm so thrilled that you guys are all here to share that with us, the employee community as well. My second favorite spot, I'm kind of the kid who'll tell you their favorite class is recess. My favorite spot on campus is the cafeteria. It's the food is good. There's a Starbucks, but more importantly, it's a great spot for us to come together as an employee community to relax or to have that impromptu meeting, to get together, to celebrate. So that's my favorite spot on campus.
Awesome. And my favorite spot on campus, like Zook, is the outdoor gym. Shout out to the amazing folks that run our boot camp. It's great to get out, get some sun, let out some steam, and get away from your desk for an hour or so and lift heavy things. And you're not exempt, Alice. Tell me, what is your favorite spot on campus?
My favorite spot is our museum. So we have a museum that we're able to display art and other artifacts and different props. And one of the best elements to that is actually that we also include fan art in our museum. So, and it rotates, so it's always changing. So to me, that's always an inspiring place to go hang out if I really need to reconnect with why we're all here. Art like crochet even. So that's kind of a quick funny story, but we have fans that are so creative, it's really overwhelming. And we had a display at one point of just crocheted items that had the Overwatch theme, and that was actually the only moment where I ended up having any street cred with my mom, because that was a day when she visited and saw the crochet, and now I have a credible role. So my mom's on the virtual ticket, so hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Oh. And the fun thing about crocheting, every holiday, so every time around, after Thanksgiving, sometime in December, the knitting club on campus knits a nice little sweater for the orc and wolf statue on our main campus. Definitely check it out if you Google it. It's so much fun. And it changes every year. Yep. So thank you guys for the introductions. As we know, as you've seen, we have a very wide breadth of technical skills and responsibilities here. And we've all come to Blizzard from various different paths. Ashok, tell us, how did you get to Blizzard?
I started at Blizzard in 2005 in France, in Europe, and I moved there from Germany. At the time, WoW was just blowing up, and I joined the customer support department there. And back then, WoW Classic was known just as WoW. And so after 2.5 years there, I got the opportunity to move to Cork as the company expanded its presence in Europe. And stayed there for 2.5 years. I've been in Irvine at the mothership now since 2010. And I've been around quite a bit, and the company has provided the opportunity for me not only to experience different cultures, and has been immensely supportive through all the relocations. But the one instrumental thing for me has been, in order to get acclimated everywhere quickly, has been the Blizzard culture, the people essentially. And their passion has helped me to kind of sustain my own passion and enthusiasm over all these years.
It's great that you have experience working in 2 of our different offices, so you could definitely come in bringing a wide set of knowledge that could help your organization. And Karina, you have a pretty interesting story of how you got here. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, so I applied for a job at Blizzard through the Blizzard Careers website, and I was living in Australia at the time. And there were 2 jobs that I was interested in, and I applied for both, and I was sent an animation test that I had to complete. They gave me about 10 days to complete it. I sent it back over, and they organized a phone call, like a phone Skype interview with me. And the phone call went for about 45 minutes. There were 3 people. There was an art director, Sam Didier, and there were two art leads that were interviewing me. And during the phone call, they asked me, they said, so what are some of your inspiration? Like, where do you draw? Like, where's your passion for Blizzard? And I went through the couple of things, anime, I love fantasy novels. I'm a huge fan of this artist called Samwise. And they started laughing, and one of them said, oh, he's all right. And I was like, yeah. And then another one said, he's a bit of a jerk. And they all started laughing, and I thought, oh my God, what do I do? I had no idea that Sam Didier was Samwise, and here I was gushing over the phone. He was the one that said he was a bit of a jerk and had them all laughing. After that, they flew me over. It was like a 16-hour flight from Australia, and I had my interview the next day. And for me, it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. And they pranked me. They pulled me, the HR brought me to this room, and they had Samwise just sitting there at the table with all his fluffy hair, and he said, I've been expecting you. And I was just like, oh my God. And then the rest of them came in, they're like, you should have seen your face. I was like, oh my God. At the end of that, they offered me the job. And, yeah, I was so exhausted when I flew back home. My family was like, did you get the job? And I was like, yes. And I just went straight to bed. Very excited.
I love that story.
It's a great story.
Yeah, I love it for a couple of reasons. One, it's just amazing. And 2, I think a lot about how our candidates feel, or people who come in to interview with us, as a part of my job at Blizzard. And I have a quick story to share about that, where one of the most amazing things to me about Blizzard is you get to use some skills, regardless of what role you have with us, that you may not have thought you'd need to use before you showed up. And so for me, it's a tie-in with thinking about candidates and how we make their experience memorable when they come to interview with us on site. And in our, so the skill I've been able to use more than I ever dreamt I'd be able to use is creativity. So we're a very creative environment. We have a lot of artists running around. I don't happen to be an artist myself, but I have a lot of respect for them. So when we had to come up with some way to thank our visitors who came to interview with us, we thought long and hard about how to make something symbolic of our campus. And so we're allowed to bring dogs with us to work. That's a big part of our culture. And as you know, you can't just bring any dog, though. You have to sign up and make sure your dog's registered. So in looking at the list of dogs registered at Blizzard, we have over 80 corgis. So for some reason, we really love them. And you'd kind of feel that if you walked around on campus, because there isn't a day that goes by where I don't see at least one. But we looked at the data, and I think Zook would agree with me. The data would tell you that that's a significant enough number that we can say we have an affinity for them. So the creative project I was able to be involved with the help of my team was to create a little mascot. So this is now our little takeaway, a little token of our thanks for anyone who spends the time to come interview with us, and a reminder of what it's like to be on our campus. So, oh, and all dogs on campus have to choose, or their masters do, whether they are registered as Alliance or Horde. Yeah. This one can change his mind. Most of them can't, because it's not both. So this is just a reminder. So thanks for letting me share that. I hope that was, I'm thinking of useful things that you might not know about joining us in the audience. I'd love if anyone else had an example of something that, maybe a skill that you've had to use in your job here at Blizzard that you wouldn't have thought you'd have to use. And I'm shocked, I'm looking at you, because I'm thinking you might. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a couple of skills. I'd say number one would be being open-minded as much as you can. It helps you adapt to different situations on the fly, and essentially makes it easier to embrace change. The other one would be a skill that I acquired working at Blizzard for 13 years is how to deal with failure, right? Nobody wants to suck at their job, but when you fail at certain things, right, not to be down on yourself, but actually look at it as an opportunity to get better. And I can honestly say I've learned more from failures than successes, right? So that's been very instrumental. The other one I'd say is have a good sense of humor, get over yourself, take the job seriously, but not yourself.
That's a good skill to have, for sure. So, and I think many of us are able to use that in our jobs at Blizzard. So one of the other things that I've heard a little bit about, just in some of your stories about what you do, is how often you get to work with people outside of your own department. I mean, some jobs you do that a lot. I think most jobs at Blizzard, you at least get to do that a little. So I guess from an engineering standpoint, I'd be interested, Jacob, if you have an example of that, because you probably focused a lot with your team, but I'd imagine you get to work with other teams.
Yeah, thanks. The game development process itself it's hugely collaborative. It's the most collaborative form of software development that I've ever done. I mean, we have artists, sound designers, engineers, designers, and we're all, working together and up out of our seats and talking to one another every day. Hey, come check this thing out on my machine. Like, this looks weird. What do you think? Hey, fix this bug. That kind of thing. But the thing that's really impressive about Blizzard, and I think it kind of sets it apart, is that the entire company is a bunch of geeks that just love games, and everyone has an opinion about our games, and everyone's playing our games and is super, super passionate about it. If you look at the end of a Blizzard game, it says, designed by Blizzard Entertainment. And I didn't really notice that much until I actually started working at the company, and I saw it a few times and had been through what it is, and seeing the emails that come in, when we're playtesting the game and when people at the company are getting their hands on the game. We're getting all kinds of detailed feedback from people all over the company about what can be better, and I think that really shows in the games and the love of all of the fans that are at the company. The other part of it that's really interesting is we do, I think we call it insourcing, where we basically take parts of other teams and we bring them into the game team. So traditionally, you would have like a game team, and then you would throw the game over the wall to a quality assurance team, and then they would test the game and find the bugs and throw bugs back over the wall. So what we do is we actually bring some of the quality assurance people into the team, and they sit with us, and they actually help us design features. So for instance, like in StarCraft, we built some pretty complicated features for Legacy of the Void that were time-based, like a tournament system. And we had QA there with us when we were designing that feature. And they were kind of like rolling their eyes like, oh my God, what is this feature? This is so complicated. How are we going to test this? This takes like hours, to play a tournament. And the programmers on the team were like, no, it's not real time. I mean, here, we'll just give you a button and you can just, move time forward as much as you want. And that alone, cut, weeks or months off of the testing of that product. So we find that like bringing voices in from outside or from other groups and involving them in the design of the game is really critical to hitting the quality bar that we want to hit.
Those are great examples. Thanks.
Yeah.
How about you, Zook? Do you have anything? It sounds like just from how you explained your role, this would be the case, but I'm sure the audience would love to hear about the different teams you work with.
Yeah, for sure. So our department is called Global Insights, which, as you might guess, has a reach outside of just locally to us. Our team specifically, so data scientists really have this great luxury that we pretty much get to work with everybody all the time. So a lot of our role is very much to go out to teams and help them understand what they're doing, help them build new features. So data scientists have worked with teams like the Hearthstone team to create personalized emails, with Overwatch or Heroes of the Storm to help combat sort of foul player language or bad player behavior, or Heroes of the Storm team to build sort of the call-out systems and other features that come at the end of matches. So it's really an amazing opportunity to really go work with all these different groups. And part of what's always been exciting to be part of this group is that we get to work with folks across every discipline. So sort of echoing what Jacob was bringing up, it's not just that we're going to go work with like only the engineers. We'll also work with the artists. We'll also work with the designers, with QA, with customer service, whoever it may be that really we can be helping. And so I feel like pretty much every other week, one of the other data scientists will come and talk to the group and tell us about some new group of people they're working with that we didn't even realize were potential partners within Blizzard. So I've really found that, those opportunities have been great, and it's very much sort of that value of every voice matters. Like, they actually listen to us. It's not just a courtesy to be like, okay, can you please say something? Okay, now please go back away with your data.
That's a great example. I think that, you know, for people that aren't actually involved in the game development directly, we all work together to produce the games. So, Karina, what about from an animator's standpoint? I'm sure you collaborate a lot with other departments.
Yeah, so I, as an animator, I work really closely with effects artists. They sit right next to me. Hero designers, we bounce ideas back and forth all the time, even sound design. But one of the wonderful things about working on Heroes of the Storm is that a lot of the characters that we have come from other games. And so, for example, when I was animating Malthael, the first thing I did was reach out to the Diablo team. And one of the great things about working at Blizzard is that not only can I reach out to the Diablo team, but I can reach out to the original person that animated Malthael like years prior. And the Diablo team are huge fans of Heroes, and they love coming up with ideas on how their characters would ride a horse or a unicorn pony. Like, oh, we have this great idea of how Diablo would look. So another great department that we have is the historian department. And what they give us is information. So as an animator, I have to figure out, oh, how does Tracer throw a grenade? Like, which hand does she use? And so did you know that Tracer is right-handed and Zero Tool from StarCraft is left-handed, which I didn't know when I started animating him. So they help us give a consistency with our characters across all of our titles. So, yeah.
Working at Blizzard is a very collaborative environment, if you haven't already guessed. For me personally, as a university relations manager, I'd say about 90% of my job is working with folks outside of my team, specifically interns, new grads, and managers hiring these folks, such as the folks here that have had interns or were former interns in the past. So back to you, Zook. As a former BlizzTurn and now a BlizzTurn hiring manager, you have seen the full gamut of the university relations function. Tell me a little bit, or tell the audience a little bit about our UR programs.
Yeah, so University Relations has just been the stellar partner, to me specifically, throughout my career, but really our department as a whole. I've actually been an intern twice, so I had the pleasure of doing that 2 summers in a row before I started as a full-time employee. And nowadays, sort of in my role as the discipline lead, I do quite a bit of work in terms of the actual hiring of interns for our summers, which is always a blast. So sort of putting on my hat as an intern, what really made the program compelling was once you joined the department, you're pretty much immediately given really high impact work. You were just, in the case of Global Insights, they basically just bear hugged me and it was just like, you are a new member of the team, let's get going, let's go do amazing things. I went and actually caught up with them at Blizzcon the year after I did the summer internship. So there's a real sense that you are already working at the company when you join that role. It's not a go get coffee kind of role. So as an intern, you get this great experience there, and then the onboarding itself really feels like this sort of cutting edge of innovation, especially now that I've become a manager, of like how we actually bring employees in. So one of the highlights for me of my summer as an intern was at the end of the summer, we did this scavenger hunt. So we're all running around campus to go meet different people, try different things out. And then when I started full-time orientation, they're like, hey, you're gonna go do that again. And my team's like, you have to win, because you've done this already. But so there's all these great experiences that just that program has brought in. Sort of putting on my hat as a manager, the interns actually have the exact same effect in the opposite direction. So when we bring in interns, everybody on the team gets so excited. Like I literally have half the data scientists fighting to be the mentor for the one of the interns. And it's like, guys, we can't all mentor them simultaneously. That's not how that works. So people get really, really energized, really engaged in these things. And the interns themselves are always stellar. Like we just get such strong candidates. I think my favorite example of this was one of our former interns, who also actually now is a new employee, had been doing some modeling work on Overwatch shortly after the summer that Overwatch came out. So we didn't really know exactly what was going on. He was trying to build some predictive models, looking into the future of where things may be going in the game. This work was really, really strong. In fact, so strong that it just kept bubbling up the chain of everybody in Overwatch. And that was how I actually first met Jeff Kaplan. It wasn't anything I ever did. It was what he did. And after the fact, we brought him on. But I kind of went back to the team. I'm like, guys, why is it that I'm meeting Kaplan through him and not us? So our interns have really been just extremely strong, great partners. And the program gets them integrated into all of that. So I love it. I always try and fight for more interns, as many as I can get.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. And shameless plug for any college students looking to get their foot in the door at Blizzard, internship applications are open. So Apply. Thank you. And just pivoting a little bit, if you've ever been on Blizzard's campus, you've seen that orc and wolf statue I had mentioned earlier. Around that is our 8 core values. We each have a core value that means a lot to us. For instance, for me, learning grow is something for me. As I'm running the UR program, I want to make sure that our interns and new grads have what they need to grow in their career. Nikki, tell me a little bit about your favorite core value.
Yeah. So I feel like this is one that a lot of people go to, but embrace your inner geek is my favorite one. And not just because I get to go to work and be a huge video game nerd for 8 hours every day, but I think embrace your inner geek is really about bringing yourself to the table and being you 100%. So I also geek out about intersectionality, especially in gaming, about accessibility work, and I get to do that in the stuff that I work on at Blizzard. I geek out about tea and cats and anime, like, you know, and I'm encouraged to bring that all in. Some of you can probably tell I have like a really distinct sense of fashion, and I just get to show up to work looking like a witch, and people are like, great, you know, that's cool. There was a talk that I was at where somebody was talking about, you know, how to choose the right job for you and everything, and the speaker was talking about, you know, your commute isn't about how far you drive into work, it's about how far you have to go away from being who you are. And at Blizzard, that's 0 for me, which is awesome. We talk a lot about like bleeding Blizzard blue, like as like the employees and everything, and it's not like there's one way to do that, right? Like there's not the Blizzard employee, TM. It's really about bringing who you are, and that's what we want from candidates who come in. Like we want to know what geeks you out, we want to know what things you're excited about, and we want you to bring that to us so we can all talk about it together. So I think that's one for me because, like, I mean, even from this panel, we have such a range of people with different backgrounds and different skills and different things that they're into, and that's what really makes Blizzard such an awesome place to be at and makes us make such awesome products.
And at Blizzard as well, we have a wide variety of mailing lists, group distribution lists. We have a whiskey club, we have a corgi club, we have a golf club. Anything that you're interested in exploring or pursuing, I guarantee you there is at least another few people that do that, if not dozens more at Blizzard. Rito, tell us about your favorite core value.
So my favorite core value is think globally. I had the privilege a month or 2 ago to travel to 2 of our offices internationally, to Seoul and Shanghai. And the thing that really impressed me when I was there was that, of course, you know, around the world, there are different preferences that people have for entertainment, whether it's different genres or business models or platforms. But the thing that holds true wherever you go for our Blizzard fans is the passion is the same. The passion everyone feels for the community, for Blizzard, for the games is the same. And our teams, our development teams especially, really try to honor that. You know, just one example of that is what Overwatch did in August between the Busan map, the Diva cinematic, and then the fan celebration in Korea. It was an awesome way for the team to honor our fans in Korea. That's just one example. Obviously, we try to do that around the world and in as many games as possible. Another example is esports, where with Overwatch, 9 of our 20 teams are outside of the US. So we really take it to heart that we have fans all around the world and that you guys are committed to us and we want to be committed to you too.
That's great. Thinking about that passion, I think the passion of our player community also translates to the passion for some of those people in the community, and many of you here thinking about careers with us. So I get asked frequently if I have advice about how to do that, and then I also have had the question, you know, if I could turn the clock back and give my the younger version of myself some advice on career advice earlier, what would that be? So thinking about making sure there's some good takeaways for the audience, the question I want to ask next to some of the panelists is, if you could give yourself some advice, your younger self or earlier career self some advice, what would that be? And then for me, I'll share mine, which is your network is the most valuable thing that you have for your career, and start building it early and take it seriously. So nurturing every contact that you can, that you make. You never know which one will lead to the next step in your career or to the right path on the career that will ultimately be where you end up. So for me, that would be my tiny little bit of advice for anyone who's interested in that. So so now that I gave you guys a couple minutes to think about what yours might be or to figure out how you'd explain that. Jacob, I don't know about you, but I'm sure there's some people that would love to hear from an engineer here. You know, what would you tell your earlier career self, if you could, about careers?
Yeah, well, thanks. I mean, I want to echo what you said a little bit because, I mean, I was once, you know, I started in game development when I was 18, and almost every job that I've gotten has been through really strange circumstances, but often through, you know, being really curious and really reaching out to other people. And, you know, so I think about myself back then and just how many hills I died on, you know, like I just didn't choose my battles very carefully. I was very curious. I dove into every single problem. I attacked everything thinking I have the perfect solution for this problem. I was your quintessential idealistic engineer. You know, it served me well in some ways, but in other ways it didn't. I mean, I remember getting pulled out of a meeting by my collar by my manager at one point. He said, you can't say that, you know, it's just relax. And so, you know, I think about it now, and giving that advice to my younger self, it'd be like, hey, like, choose your battles carefully. Like, spend more time thinking about the problems that are important, about the people that are around you and what they might bring to the table and what you can learn from them. A lot of what I do now is, you know, as a manager and even working on new projects, is really trying to think about what are the important problems to solve. You know, what's going to make a difference, but also realizing that I don't have all those answers, and I need to go and seek out other people, whether they're an intern who's starting at Blizzard and for the first time, or, you know, my family members or friends or colleagues, and asking them, like, hey, I think this is an important problem. What do you think? And so, you know, now I definitely assess the battlefield a little bit more, and I try and give that advice to people that are in my shoes that are getting started. So.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Nikki, what about you?
Advice I would give to myself. So this is going to sound weird, but I think it would be keep talking to strangers. I think a lot about, like, a really pivotal time for me was baby Nikki, circa beginning of college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew that I really liked video games and people, so I went into a psychology program. And I would talk to professors and I'd be like, yeah, video games are super cool, I'm interested in them. And they'd be like, and violence. And I was like, no. And they'd be like, and addiction. And I was like, no. And so I kept getting this pushback, and I had one teaching assistant who I went up and talked to after class because I was interested in her research, and she was like, well, what are you into? And I was like, blah, 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 like, you know, my World of Warcraft guild that I met online, and they're super cool, and I have all these relationships with them, and I really want to study other people that do that. And she was like, that's awesome, and really encouraged me. And she was like the first person that I had talked to that didn't just say, like, that's dumb. So I ended up staying in touch with her. I worked in her lab a little bit. Years went by. I found any excuse to write about video games for any class project that I had. And it started getting later in my undergrad career, and I didn't know what to do with a bachelor degree in psychology, so I was like, I'll go to grad school. And I started looking into clinical psychology programs. And there's an alternate universe where I go into clinical psychology and absolutely hate it. But luckily I didn't. So I ran into this same TA in a coffee shop on campus while I was doing my applications. And she was like, hey, how have you been? What's been going on? And so I started to tell her about how things had been and the programs I was looking at. And she was like, what happened to all the video game stuff? And I was like, well, that's not really a job that you can do. And like, I just don't see, I've never seen anybody do this, and I don't know what programs to look at it, and so I'm just going to do clinical psych. And she was like, Nikki, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said to me. And I was like, oh my God. But I mean, she made this point about, like, you really care about video games, and it doesn't matter if you've never seen anybody who's done video game research before. They existed, I just didn't know about them. She was like, your passion is what's going to help push you in those times when you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what the future looks like, but you really care about this, so that's what you should go do. So I went home and I changed all my applications and found a bunch of non-psychology programs, went to grad school and did all of my research on video games. I wrote a PhD dissertation on World of Warcraft. So it sounds kind of cheesy, like follow your dreams, but like, I mean, busted my ass to make sure that I could figure out some way to take these two things that I really loved and make them work and have some kind of impact. So, and it was all just because I had this one random TA who listened to me like ramble at her for like 30 minutes about how much I love video games. So yeah, keep talking to people. Goes along with the network thing, and follow your passions, seriously.
Yeah, that's a great example too. So maybe one more. I'm thinking, Amrita, do you have any words of wisdom you'd share to your earlier self if you could?
Of course, sure. I'll share the advice that I got actually 5 or 10 years ago, which is it's a career lattice, not a career ladder. It's about the most important thing you can do in your career is pursue learning and growth. And the way that I've found I can do that is to try different things that challenge me, things that are daunting, things that make me feel uncomfortable, but ultimately, you know, persevering through that and finding a way to actually lend a fresh perspective to a new area. So at the company, I've had 4 different jobs in my 8 years, strategy, finance, investor relations, and now as CFO of Blizzard. And each time I felt for the first 6 months, frankly, that I was a fraud. I felt like how was I adding any value? But over time you learn and you realize that you can actually add a lot of value when you bring a new perspective. And it's an investment actually that the company is making in you to invest in your growth that will help the company and help the employee. And I'm by no means the only example of that. There are lots of examples of that around Blizzard, you know, where we have development talent, we have other talent that moves across the company to get their creative juices flowing. I don't think we'd have Overwatch today or Hearthstone today if we didn't have some of those leaders coming from other franchises and just wanting and having an idea and wanting to pursue something new. So I would say keep following your passion and keep in the pursuit of growth.
Great.
Thank you so much for your feedback and words of wisdom. As the UR manager, I hear that from early career talent up through executive talent. So great feedback. And if you are interested in learning more about just what it's like to work behind the gates at Blizzard, the Life at Blizzard Twitter hashtag, said that right, is hosting 2 AMAs, one today and one tomorrow. The one today is from 3 to 5 p.m. and that focuses on engineering and technology. And the one tomorrow from 1 to 3 p.m. focuses on art and animation. So definitely check it out. And also check out our Life at Blizzard Instagram account while you're at it.
Thanks, Janine. Yeah, so you'll be able to ask us anything you weren't able to hear from us on today on those chats. And I just wanted to just wrap up and say thank you for being such an engaged and welcoming audience and being interested enough to come listen. Hopefully you heard a little bit about what it's like to actually work at Blizzard that you might not have known before, and maybe a few nuggets of inspiration along with advice from some people that have really been successful in our environment. So I just wanted to say thank you, and most importantly, have a great BlizzCon.
Thank you, guys.